Trump engaged in criminal activity. That's what Special Counsel Jack Smith said during his testimony before Congress. He said it seated at a solid wood witness table, under oath, and in full view of the American people. Behind him, a towering seal of the United States, and on the screen above, a live video of the chamber. There were rows of lawmakers, lawyers, and journalists all around him. Cameras rolled from every angle. Witnesses lined the gallery wall to wall, all to hear testimony that Trump and his enablers have prevented us from hearing. And those sentences, those 5 words, may have infuriated the president more than anything we've seen yet. Because what followed made the rest of the day fall sharply into place. So much so that the White House released a photo of Trump that they believed would counter the damage. But instead of the show of strength they were hoping for, the image projected something else entirely. So in the image, Trump stood encircled by cameras and reporters, but looked completely alone. His shoulders were collapsed, his arms hung stiff at his side. His mouth was slightly open, in the usual search for a full breath. His jaw was loose, his eyes were barely open at all. They were glassy, unfocused, not really locked on anything or anyone. He looked like a man who had wandered into a room and wasn't even sure why he was there. But this has become a near daily occurrence. Yet it still evokes the same shock and horror you feel when you see the leader of the free world in such a decompensating mental and physical state. The caption that they added to that image, it tried to project accomplishment and strength. This is what they said: "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena." But what the photo showed was not a man in the arena. It was a man being manipulated through an arena, a man who looked utterly lost inside his own body. What we're watching now appears to many to be cognitive decline layered on top of narcissism. And when you mix that with absolute power, you get masked confusion, frailty, the lack of impulse control, performative strength, and the worst part, the largest cover-up in American history. They're trying to stage manage reality, but even the makeup can't hold. Because today, we also saw new images of Trump's left hand with the skin sagging unnaturally as if it were slipping off. It was pale and almost peeling. A dark purple bruise pushed through the foundation they had tried to layer on top to camouflage and hide the reality of his physical breakdown. Multiple observers speculated it came from an IV. You could even see where they tried to stop and patch him up mid-prep before pushing him out to face the world. The White House later issued an official explanation, claiming he had simply hit his hand on a table. And the timing of all the bruises, the image, the statement from Jack Smith, and then the post Trump made later in the day all showed just how desperately his enablers are scrambling. Trump posted, in all caps, "Record numbers all over the place. Should I try for a 4th term?" The timing of this message wasn't a coincidence. It was a reaction, a public taunt aimed at the Constitution of the United States. On the very same day, a federal prosecutor told the world that the president committed crimes. It was proof that the regime knows that its patchwork facade is cracking, and they are racing to hold it together before the entire machine breaks apart in front of us. And I just gotta stop for a second, because 4th term? He can't count. He would be running for the 4th time, but this is his 2nd term. That same instinct that drove that post is what played out minute by minute inside the hearing room. Because what struck me the most about today's hearing wasn't just what was said. It was what wasn't allowed to be said. Special Counsel Jack Smith came prepared to answer questions about his investigation, but he wasn't given the chance. The Republican members of Congress didn't show up to hear facts. They didn't challenge the evidence. They didn't engage with the substance of the indictments against Trump. Instead, they launched into long-winded tirades packed with grievances and performance. They shouted over Smith. They ran down the clock. They turned the hearing into a political theater, using their time not to investigate crimes, but to protect the man accused of committing them. Their plan was to flood the space with noise to overwhelm the public with spectacle and leave no room for clarity. That's how authoritarian systems maintain control, by burying the truth in chaos. And one of the most absurd moments came from California Congressman Darrell Issa, who took it upon himself to accuse Smith of acting like one of, and I quote, "the president's men under Richard Nixon." He said, "You, like the president's men for Richard Nixon, went after your political enemies." That's what Issa said. And then he said, "Maybe they're not your political enemies, but they sure as hell were Joe Biden's political enemies, weren't they?" Then, without skipping a beat, Issa turned the accusations into a statement. He said, "They were the enemies of the president, and you were their arm, weren't you?" And what did Smith say? Calmly, he responded with a single word: "No." Issa wasn't interested in evidence. He was trying to rewrite the entire concept of criminal conduct into a matter of personal belief. He argued that Trump's election lies, his refusal to concede, his pressure campaigns, and his incitement were all protected speech. He said, "You understand the Constitution. Do you understand the Bill of Rights, that someone has the absolute right to believe something, whether it's true or not, and to advocate for something, whether it's true or not?" Issa asked this, his tone getting sharper. "So you know that people have a right to opine, lobby for, assert, do everything they can legally to ask for people to make different decisions. Then why is it that you saw criminal conduct on behalf of a president who believed he didn't win?" And there it was. The entire Republican defense laid bare. That belief, even false belief, is more important than the rule of law. That if a president truly believes he should remain in power, then nothing he does to make that happen can be criminal. It's not a legal argument. It's a loyalty test, a smokescreen designed to give cover to anyone who participated in January 6th or supported the broader effort to overturn the 2020 election. And Jack Smith, to his credit, never wavered. He said, "I made the decisions without regard to President Trump's political association, activities, beliefs, or candidacy in the 2024 election." And then he went on to say, President Trump was charged because the evidence established that he willfully broke the law, the very law he took an oath to uphold. Smith was very clear. He said, "I stand by my decision as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump." Then he said the line that matters most. "Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity." If asked whether he would prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, he said, "I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or Republican." He wasn't speaking in hypotheticals. He was describing exactly what he had done, what the law required him to do. He said the law required that he be held accountable, Smith said. So that is what I did. To have done otherwise on the facts of these cases would have been to shirk my duties as a prosecutor. Later, he reinforced it again. We were ready, willing, and able to go to trial in the case. But none of that is what dominated the headlines. What dominated was the backlash, because while Jack Smith gave calm, careful testimony, Trump was on Truth Social live posting in real time. And the things he said were not the words of someone who believes in law and order. They were the words of a man declaring war on the very concept of accountability. He said, "Deranged Jack Smith is being decimated before Congress." And he continued on with, "It was over when they discussed his past failures and unfair prosecutions. He destroyed many lives under the guise of legitimacy. Jack Smith is a deranged animal who shouldn't be allowed to practice law. If he were a Republican, his license would have been taken away from him, or far worse. Hopefully, the Attorney General is looking at what he's done, including some of the crooked and corrupt witnesses that he was attempting to use in his case against me. The whole thing was a Democrat scam. A big price should be paid by them for what they have put our country through." And then, without hesitation, he escalated again. He said, "Based on his testimony today, there is no question that deranged Jack Smith should be prosecuted for his actions. He destroyed the lives of many innocent people, which has been his history as a prosecutor. At a minimum, he committed large-scale perjury." This wasn't trolling. It was a message to the entire legal system from the President of the United States. Trump and his allies are no longer just defending themselves. They are actively attacking the people tasked with holding them accountable. The prosecutors, the judges, and the witnesses. Every institution that checks power is now being framed as an enemy of the state. The goal isn't just to discredit Smith. It's to teach every other official watching that doing your job will make you a target, that the law doesn't apply equally, and that protecting democracy will come at a personal cost. And over time, that message works, not because people believe it, but because they grow tired and afraid. They start asking themselves if it's worth it, and fewer of them step forward next time. That's the real danger. And despite how far it feels like our country and our constitutional norms have been broken, today also showed us something else, that not everything has collapsed. So if you're looking for a sign that it's not too late to save this country from authoritarian collapse, we saw it today. Jack Smith sat before Congress under oath and said it plainly. The President of the United States engaged in criminal activity. And even as Trump's allies tried to bury him in chaos, corruption, deflecting, spinning lies to confuse the public, he said it anyways. He said it calmly, directly, backed by evidence. He told the truth and he didn't back down. And the Democrats, they showed up. They stood with him. They pushed past the noise and laid out the facts. They reminded us what it looks like when people take their oath seriously, when they speak up and fight back. This is the united resistance we need. The Republicans in Congress have made their choice. They're not going to suddenly wake up. They decided their job is to protect power at any cost, even if that means defending a man who wants to end our constitutional republic. They're not going to change, but that doesn't mean we have to stop paying attention. We need to make it very clear to them that we see what they're doing, that we're keeping track, and we will vote out every last one of them who sided with the man trying to destroy this country, instead of defending the Constitution that they swore to uphold. I was tired today after listening to endless hours of testimony, speeches, and propaganda. I was frustrated and disappointed too, but I also felt hope. Not because everything is fine, because it is absolutely not, but because Jack Smith showed up anyway. He knew what walking into that room meant. He knew that telling the truth under oath in front of Congress would put a bigger target on his back. He knows he's already on Trump's retribution list, and that simply speaking the truth could invite baseless investigations and prosecution down the line. And still, he sat there and he did it. He stayed true to the Constitution, and he honored his country when it would have been easier to stay quiet or step aside. And that matters. Because when people inside the system choose integrity over fear, it creates space for others to do the same. The more people willing to stand up to this fascist regime, even knowing the risks, the harder it becomes to silence the truth. And the truth is still getting through. That means better days are still possible. And I hope that gave you real hope for America too. And if you made it this far, we're on the same page and on the same side of history. I'm working really hard to spread this message to as many people as possible, so please make sure you're subscribed. If you can, leave a comment, like this, share it with somebody. Every single thing helps to tell the algorithm to show it to more people and help us spread the word. We don't have to live like this. And if you'd like to read all of my daily posts, you can find them on Substack. Just search for Heather Delaney Reese, and I've included a link for you below. And remember, no matter how dark the days get, and they're going to get a lot worse, I'm going to be here every single day. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to keep having hope for America. I'll see you tomorrow.